So let's talk a little bit now about the flavor of foods. I'm going to start off with the flavor of sweetness in traditional Chinese medicine. So sugar has gotten a very bad rap, and for good reason. For many of us, it's way too readily available. Many of us are having too much of it on a regular basis. But sweet, the flavor and sugar itself is not inherently bad. It's just that we have such an abundance of it that we didn't used to have. And our forms of processing have highly intensified it. But sweetness and sugar has been used historically for its medicinal properties, in particular to nourish the body, to help to rebuild somebody if they've got a lot of weakness, if they're very thin and weak, then sugar and sweetness was a good way to restore that. Also to help to strengthen digestion, it has been used for that as well as to slow down and neutralize the toxicity of other substances, and then to calm the nervous system. So in terms of the calming the nervous system, we do know that when we have sugar, it does have an effect on our serotonin production. So we can feel, sometimes we get sugar cravings because we're stressed out, and having something sweet, temporarily helps us to feel a little bit calmer. For some of us, if you get too much sugar, it does the opposite effect and it can make you feel hyper. We particularly know that when kids have a lot of sugar, they can get overly hyper. So, but there is a balance, as with anything nutritional. There is a balance of what can be beneficial. In excess can become a problem. To talk about sweet foods, I'm generally not talking about candies and cookies and cakes and things that are intensely sweet like that. In fact, that I do recommend sweet foods to my patients fairly often, but I'm thinking more along the line of root vegetables, for example, beets, carrots, sweet potatoes, yams, regular potatoes. Those all have a sweetness to it. So though they may not you may not think of them initially as a sweet, if you really have a sweet tooth, then having some of these root vegetables roasted enhances the sweetness. And I add a little bit of cinnamon because cinnamon also adds to the sweetness flavor, brings the sweetness out in those root vegetables, while also helping to balance blood sugars. Other vegetables that are naturally sweet include tomatoes, mushrooms, even things like lettuce and cabbage, which don't have a lot of flavor, still have a sweetness element to them. Kohlrabi is another one. That also has a spicy flavor to it, but there is an underlying sweetness to it. All meats have some sweetness to them as well as most grains. Some of them may have a bitterness or saltiness or other things added to them, but sweetness is an element there for sure. And then, of course, fruit. Most of the fruits have a sweet element to them. So when we're talking about whole foods, sweetness is not a big issue for our health, as long as we're having it in moderate amounts and paying attention to our own personal needs.